So what I'm working on now is this flooring in the center between the stringers up front. I've got the flooring done, well not done, but figured out on either side there. But here, I want it to be down as low as possible, kind of like I did here. I want the floor down. I know some people have built a boat and they just have the flooring on top of the stringer in this area, but I didn't want that because when you're sitting here riding the boat and driving it, I didn't want your feet up, knees up, and your chin. So I try to make it as low as possible, and that's what I did, of course, back there. I talked about that earlier, but in earlier videos. So anyway, I'm working on this, and of course this is all angled and just it slopes differently, and so I'm working on doing something like this. This of course will be flipped over, and I'll show what this looks like here after a bit. Sets in there, and these, so those floor battens will run along here, and to get this all right, so this is upside down, so this the top edge is all of course needs to be level this way with everything, and also this way with everything, basically with the stringers. So that was tricky, like a lot of other things in this boat, but so I'm getting there, and so you can see where I sanded off where the bands will be. Now what I'm building actually only goes to those first two outer battens. I thought I was going to make something go all the way out, but I've got to figure out something for this outer part. I'm going to do something separately there, and then so I'll show what this looks like here after, like I mentioned, and I'll show you kind of where I'm headed. So here's this put together, and it's not epoxied yet, and so I'll show how that fits the boat here in a second. So there it is, approximately where it's going to end up down in the boat. It's a little tough to see, but basically this whole area will be plywood, but I plan on making a hatch that'll open actually over this. I know that beam there will go across the middle, but I don't care. It's really just to give me access down underneath here now. So I plan on having plywood basically all around this, and then there'll essentially be a square cut out, and then a hatch on hinges will be there. Now up here on that floor timber, I'm going to epoxy a support piece goes across there to support the plywood up there, and then in back there'll be enough support. I'm not too worried about that. I'm not going to do anything back there because when somebody's standing here, most of their weight will be right on that. So, and I wanted to make this really strong. I mean, this floor support, because there could be two people standing up here, and I need it to just be rock solid. So you may look at this and say, well, it's not that big a deal, but to make this, but to get these, to get it to set properly on the two battens there, but then also on the keel, because it's basically touching all three of those surfaces at once, and they're different angles and all that. So it was tricky for me to actually figure out what I wanted to do, but then also to do it. And so again, this top surface is essentially level both ways. Again, front to back, level with the top of the stringers, and then side to side, same angle essentially. It's across the top of the stringers. So I'm going to keep marching on, and my next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to glue or make strips and eventually be epoxied that will go on the outside edge of this all the way around to support the plywood that will be going around this, and the hatch will open and close and rest on this square, basically the outer square of this. So that's where I am so far on this floor support. So here's that supporting frame with these extra edge pieces around, and that'll provide support for the plywood flooring that goes around the hatch, and then these inner edges will be what the hatch will be supported on. So I'll show what this looks like in the boat here in a second. So there it is, getting in the boat. And so now what I need to do, I'd mentioned how I'm going to put a strip across there. I guess maybe I'll do that next. But these outer edges, I'm going to put some kind of little feet, something maybe on this outer batten to hold the flooring. I'll have to see how that's going to work. But I need to have some kind of support on the outside, and so I need to do that as well. So I'll be working on that. Okay, so I think I've finished this. It's not epoxied up, but this is to support the flooring in the front, and it's kind of odd, but what I wanted, and somewhat of a contraption really, but these pieces, I wanted them setting on the battens, and the battens support the weight, and then the little piece here, because there really wasn't as much need to go up. I mean, this is like up front is kind of under the dash. I don't need as much support up there. It's not like people be standing there, but I'll be kneeling up there to get inside this. I'm going to put 2 doors in there to access the bow occasionally, and then you can see I've got that support piece there. I still need to sand off that drip, but a couple drips, and then I'll reseal where I've sanded down on the battens and stuff to make it smooth. I'll reseal those with encapsulating epoxy, but the reason I have 3 pieces like this is the angles, like the angle back here was 17 or 18 degrees, the angle of the battens, or the batten that's resting on, and this was like 20 degrees, and that's like 21 something, and the same over here. So I couldn't just have one piece cut somehow, plus it needed to be wider. I wanted it to go closer. You can see I wanted it relatively close to the stringer, because when you're standing there, I mean, remember there's gonna be plywood here, but I didn't want to have edges that were not supported very well. And then you can see in the back there, this is roughly position where it's gonna be, and so it's not like people be standing on the edges. There's a little gap there to the edge, so the plywood won't be supported on the outer edges, but this will be nice and solid. So I don't know, there are 100 different ways to do this, but this is what I have come up with, and so it should be good and strong, because I mean, if 2 adults are standing in the middle here by chance, which it could happen easily, I just wanted this to be really strong. So it's a little bit strange, and basically this piece of lumber here, its job is only to hold these supporting pieces in position, and that's really all it's to do. It's not to provide support really. And so yeah, these are compound angles. I mean, the battens, as they go from back here to up front, it's sloped up roughly 3-ish degrees, and then you've got different angles of the battens underneath. Now this surface though is flat, so I'll pull it out and show you what it looks like. So I lift this up. This is the front, and that goes towards the rear, and you can see here these supports. And if you notice, of course, the top surface is flat, and that's the plywood will rest on. But underneath, if you notice these, can't really point, but you can see the angled pieces over here underneath, and they have different angles, you know, 18 or so degrees, and then 20 this angle, and then this one here is like 21 or a little more, something like that. And so you've got angles that change this way as the batten goes up the boat. It's twisting slightly, essentially just because of the curvature of the way the hull is. But then also, like I mentioned, from back to front, there's an angle up this way too. So if you were to look like this, they are curving up, so both sides. So I don't know. And you can see how these bottom pieces are cut in the middle, which, you know, I showed those before. I didn't show necessarily the bottom. You can see how I got these angles because those rest on the inner battens. Just the battens on, you know, basically first battens on either side of the keel, and then those outer pieces rest on the outer battens. So I don't know. A lot of compound angles, and so this is what I came up with, and I think it's going to work well. It's just kind of odd looking. But now, of course, you'll never see it because it'll be covered with plywood, which is good. So the plywood, so there'll be essentially a hatch in the middle, like I mentioned. So the pie, you know, I'll cut a gap for the hatch because my plan is to have carpet on the flooring, and so there'll be a gap here, so that essentially be a hole cut out, and it'll rest somewhere around this part here, and then the hatch will be supported by this inner square all around, and then the outer hole essentially is supported by this all the way around. And then these outer pieces, this one and this one, their only job is to hold these pieces in position, so because the support is provided by the batten. So that's what we got. So now I need to glue this thing up, and then I may not, I'm going to glue these pieces to this piece, but this piece I may not glue to this in case I need to do some minor adjusting, but I'm not sure. I may go ahead and do it, but everything else will be epoxied up. One thing I did want to mention about these two pieces back here on either side, I used, I think it was 8/4 stock. I don't think it was 12/4 because it's a little under 2 inches. It's over 1 3/4 inches finished. And I think 8/4 stock, when they finish it, it's that. But it's either 8/4 or 12/4 stock. But what I did though is, you know, of course, the compound angles there on the bottom that I cut, but the way that I did the grain, I made the grain go this way. I didn't want to do the grain going this way because it overhangs the batten. The outer edge of the batten is somewhere in this area depending on which piece, and if the grain was this way, if there was pressure on this outer part, it could just snap off. And of course I'd never know it because it's going to be covered with plywood, but anyway, so just something I did want to mention is for these two, I made the grain go that way to provide that extra strength in this part here. So here's the front floor support, all epoxied up. It took me, I had to do it in stages, but this is the last stage, so it's cured now. I got to take these clamps off. And so there we have it. This kind of an oddball looking piece, but support that front floorboard good. Next thing I got to do, of course, is encapsulate this. And I've got other things to encapsulate too that I probably will go ahead and do now. I've got just some miscellaneous things that I need to encapsulate, so I'll do that at the same time I do this.